Alright, so now let's move on with chapter 2, which talks mainly about the high level in terms of marketing, which is how do you develop effective marketing plans and strategies. Before we get into it, what do you think should come first, the marketing plan or the marketing strategy? Those of you who think that it is a strategy is actually an incorrect way of doing things. You must have the plan in mind first, and to be able to achieve the plan, it is your strategy. So the strategy basically is the how do you get there, or how do you achieve the plan. That's what we're going to be talking about here. What does it take to develop a marketing plan? And then what does it take to develop a marketing strategy to achieve that plan? Uh, Yahoo, you think Yahoo has competition? Of course, it does have competition, and it has competition from whom? From Google. Now, both are search engines, but both want to be the first, the prime search engines when you are searching for whatever information you're searching. You typically say, let's Google it up, and then you use Google as your prime search engine, or do you say uh, whether you want to do it with Yahoo? Whatever you do, you must have three broad approaches towards marketing. And what are these three broad approaches towards marketing? You must choose the value segment. Now, what do you mean by of course, value, we know what we are talking about. Segment is nothing else but the demographic segment that what you are going to be attracting, reaching out to. So we choose the value segment, we provide the value proposition, and we communicate the network value. So what does that mean? Once you decide that I'm going to be reaching out to this demographic segment, men for argument's sake, people with income of these men should have an income of above 5,000 dirhams per month, must have been at least visited a fine dining restaurant in the last 1 month, whatever is my target audience. To this target, I must provide a value proposition, and this value proposition should not be the run of the mill kind of things that I what is that what for example, let's try and do this for Damas. Damas is a jewelry store. What is the value segment for Damas? Obviously, it is both men and women, all nationalities, all Emirates, and let's say people who are slightly not the average but the above average income, and let's say they are going to appeal to people with 7,500 dirhams of income each month. But what is the value proposition that Damas should offer? Pure gold, offering 24, offering 22, 24 karat gold, high quality gold, blah blah, all of this. This is always going to be the case by any jewelry provider in the UAE. I do not want to say statements, I do not want to say motherhood statements which are going to not add any value to the customer. Can I say buy our gold because we offer 24 karat or because we offer pure gold? And that's a given. So I need to find out what is the value proposition. Now, if you've been seeing the advertisements of Malabar Gold in cinemas and in televisions and in things, they are talking about you getting the price of gold. First of all, they're talking about honesty and integrity by saying this is the price of gold and this is the price of making and charges. So when you're going to sell it back, you know how much you're going to get it today in terms of the price of gold without the making charges. So the pricing is proper. So that is what they're considering as their USP or value proposition. And this value proposition is not enough by itself. What it must do is it must communicate this on a regular basis through all channels with our customers or consumers. They need to be aware of my value proposition. Yeah, so I must choose my value segment. Whom am I going to target? I must provide them with a value proposition, and this value proposition needs to be communicated to the target audience on a regular basis. Okay, so what is value chain? So value chain basically is everything and anybody and everybody who the organization encounters to be able to reach out to its customer. So it includes all kind of activities. It could be primary activities, it could be secondary activities, as long as they are a party in the chain to be able to reach out to the end consumer or the customer, as the case may be. This value chain is getting more and more sophisticated. It is getting more and more complex, and it is getting more and more finer as we move forward. So when you're looking at processes, these processes can be primary or secondary, and they help you reach out to your end user or end consumer. Michael Porter, who is the guru of strategy, and what he's saying is that value chain obviously reinforces the fact that value chain has got to be to create more customer value, and there he's identified 5 primary activities and 4 secondary or support activities to help create value chain. Now what you see is these primary activities on the slide here, and you have support activities on the slide here. And what are these primary activities? These primary activities are covered with it's actually the entire manufacturing process. What is it? I mean, how do you bring in materials? How do you bring in stuff within the organization? What kind of modes of transport do you need to adopt to bring in these materials into? Once these are brought into, how is the manufacturing happening? Do you need to outsource any piece? Do you need to insource everything? Having manufactured everything, how do you reach out to your consumer? Through a wholesaler, through a retailer, through e-commerce, through all of this. Finally, when you're reaching out, how do you keep your customer informed? What marketing and sales activities do you need to do? Do you need to end by just informing, or do you need to continuously inform? And also what is important is, what service do you need to give? The IT field, for example, thrives on after sales service. Automobile manufacturers, your Nissans and Toyotas, thrive on the fact that the after sales or support is also done through their service centers and not through an outside service center. So they give you a lot of deals, a lot of attraction. They market it to you because now they know that you could be going to a third party and not come to their service centers. So those are your primary activities. Your support activities are also called as strong enablers to help you achieve your objectives. And these are, of course, procurement, good and bad, both good and bad. Call them a beast, but yes, they are a strong enabler. They help you procure goods and services from the supplier in the most optimum or rational manner. Technology, we cannot abuse technology. We need to look at technology as a strong enabler. Similarly, we need to look at human resources as a strong enabler. Human capital is capital that we need to invest into through training, through coaching, through development, because they help us achieve our objectives. Firm's infrastructure, which basically means all strengths that the firm can offer in terms of the legal department, do you insource, outsource, finance, insource, outsource, external marketing department, external PR department, and all these can be looked at, whether you have your corporate communications, whether you have your own outsource, and all these help you achieve your marketing goals and objectives. So primary activities and support activities. Kodak, a strong brand at one point of time, kind of lost its business because nobody wanted to take pictures and rolls and stuff. Suddenly moved into, not suddenly actually, moved into digital pictures. And now with Dubai going to grow a lot on 3D and 3D printing in the media business, this revolution of 3D printing is going to be able to be coming into Dubai. Of course, it's expensive, but mostly your fields are going to be using it, and that is a new avenue that businesses are looking at. Core business processes. What does the word core mean? Core means your primary reason for why you exist. You have your core activities and you have your ancillary activities. So, in your core business processes, you must see which are these processes that are helping me reach out to the market, helping me reach out to my customer, helping me complete my managerial activities, that is logistics. So my core business processes need to be segmented into market driven, customer driven, and logistics or management driven, and we need to understand which are these. You cannot play with, tamper with core business processes because they create an image or an impact in the minds of the customer. Now, if a bank says, I can give you a process your loan in 20 minutes, fantastic. But you still need to go to the branch to sign your papers because the central bank or the legal body in this part of the world at least does not accept e-signature as a legal signature. Now, if that is not being accepted as a acceptable means, no matter what you do, the signature component is your core business process, and you cannot falsify to the customer that the loan can be disbursed in 20 minutes. And therefore, you need to change the communication to saying the approval happens in 20 minutes. Everything else can take about a day or two, depending on the time and the manner in which it can be processed. So, must inform the customer righteously what it takes, keeping in mind that this is what I have to do, no matter whether I like it or I don't like it. I have to do it. It is a core business activity or a core business process. And therefore, what are the characteristics of these core business competencies? If it is my core business process, I need to see, do I have a competitive advantage on my core businesses? Can I do what, am I a me too, or am I a different organization that can offer a competitive advantage through this, whatever I'm doing? Am I creating an environment wherein competition, it's going to be very difficult for competition to imitate me or to offer exactly what I'm offering? And that is something that is a strong marketing strategy, that it is our USPs. The Pepsi formula, for example, the concentrate formula, is not known to everybody, and therefore it's very difficult to imitate the formula which even Coke cannot imitate, because Coke has a different formula. Applications in a wide variety of markets. You must Emar Properties was a brand that existed in this market, and it had a first mover advantage by building property. And what was its USP? Its USP, I think, was promised. What it promised is what it delivered, which organizations like JBR, Istithmar, or organizations like Nakhil suffered because they did not deliver what was promised. So Emar leveraged on this, and once Emar leveraged on this, it knew that UAE is a market which is saturated, and therefore, what is its strategy now? Its strategy now is to focus on diversify or outside UAE markets, and therefore it has focused into Egypt, into Pakistan, into Africa, and in these markets is where it is getting into construction, real estate, both for commercial as well as for residential purposes. Netflix has come a long way in the entertainment business nowadays, and obviously it has capitalized on the need for DVDs, renting, and watching movies, and now you can watch it at your own pace. You have Netflix series. I mean, people talk about it more than talking about what they watch on television. So it has entirely brought about a revolution in how people are viewing entertainment. How many of you have a Netflix account? I'm sure most of you do have one, right? So, what is it that firms need to consider before it, or what is it that firms need to consider when it is planning and strategizing through the marketing department? So some key questions is, making mistakes, is that an issue? Making mistakes is not an issue as far as you promise yourself that you are going to learn from these mistakes. You are not going to repeat these mistakes. You will take the learning lessons out of this so that it benefits your future decisions. Once you do that, you need to constantly evaluate your current plans. Should you modify them? Should you continue them? I think this is a question that you need to take on a monthly basis when you're doing your KPI reviews with your senior management. Because if things are not working, then instead of waiting till the end of the year, you'd rather modify, you'd rather change or amend your plans now than suffer and then not achieve your objectives in the future. How do you envision the future? You must have a forecast, you must have a plan, you must have a vision of how you are going to be changing the future. And this is going to be able to put your plans today, your marketing plans today. How many organizations now have not gotten the word digitization in their plans? Hardly any. Why? Because you see digitization as a key component into your business processes or whatever you're doing in the future. The rise of the fintechs in DIFC is a reason why digitization is important to the banks, and banks are not so advanced to use digitization, and therefore they're going to be partnering with these fintechs to offer value to their consumers or customers, in this case the customers. So it's important to use the learnings from the past to evaluate the present and to keep the future in mind. Your future trends have to be brought in today and not wait till somebody else is doing it. If you're a leader, you are envisaged or you are given an objective of coming out or maintaining or bringing about new changes into the industry, and that's how you bring about excitement in the industry that you're operating in. So like you have integrated marketing, you had holistic marketing, which we saw, which involves integrating the ideation or the exploration stage to the creation stage to the delivering state with an objective of meeting the needs and requirements of the stakeholders. Yeah, so not just create but to deliver, not just ideate but to create, not just create but to deliver, with an objective of building long-term relationships. And these relationships should be satisfactory for across your stakeholders, may it be your staff, may it be your customers, may it be the society at large. Brand identity. Now you have Intel, of course, but you have various brands have various identities, and various organizations have a brand identity that they have created through their logos, through their designs, through their colors, which is what they own. Who do you think owns the color blue in its communication, in its branding? It is Pepsi Cola, and it is Pepsi Cola has actually literally years ago it did a campaign to own the color blue. So who owns the color red from that point of view? It's Coca-Cola. So there's a blue and red war that we can see in their communication messages that they want to give out. So there's a color ownership in this case. The Nike swoosh that you saw said just do it. That's something that the organization always lived for. Today the organization is saying win, just participating is not good enough. You must have a winning attitude, not a participating attitude. And therefore, the just do it is from a winning perspective rather than from a participation perspective. The McDonald's logo, if you've seen the advertisement for McDonald's, talks about the M, and there's an infant actually which is crying in the ad. If you've seen the ad, and the infant is crying, and you see the ad being opening and closing in. When the child or when the infant is seeing the McDonald's logo, the child is pacified, and when he does not see the McDonald's logo, the child is crying out loud, and therefore it's trying to see the affinity with the brand the moment the brand is coming to contact with that age group as well. And that happens very much when you're traveling abroad, and when you're just landing, going into your taxi and going to the airport, you come across brands that you're familiar with on as you travel. And as you travel, if you've seen a McDonald's, you feel happy that you're not going to die hungry here. At least you're going to also see other brands of retail outlets, and you know that you are in familiar zone, in familiar territories, and you have a kind of sense of belonging to the society when you see brands that you can recognize. So what's a marketing plan? A marketing plan is everything and anything that you're going to be planning about to achieve your marketing objectives, to achieve the marketing needs, to achieve the marketing initiatives. So you have two aspects in a marketing plan. You have the strategic aspects and you have the tactical aspects in a marketing plan. So what are the strategic aspects in a marketing plan? The key aspect there is, who are you going to target? And this target has to be defined, as we said earlier, in demographic terms. This is my target, and this is how my target behaves. These are the needs and requirements of my target audience. Against the target, you must always map out and say, this is the value, this is the value proposition that I'm going to offer to my target market. Of course, all of this is never going to be done in isolation. It is going to be done in light of the marketing opportunity. What is it that the environment has in store for us? The environment in terms of political, economic, legal, socio-cultural, and so on and so forth. So that is very important as far as the marketing opportunity is concerned. So that is my strategic marketing plan. I then have something called as a tactical marketing plan. Tactical is anything and everything that I must talk about my product. What is it that I'm going to do with my product? Am I going to make changes to the offerings? What is it that I'm going to do to the pricing? Am I going to keep it the same? Am I going to change it? What is it that I'm going to do to my promotion? Am I going to use above the line, below the line, direct marketing? What am I going to be doing? What am I going to be doing with the place? Am I going to directly go out, reach out to my consumers, or am I going to use direct intermediaries to reach out to my consumers? Am I going to use bespoke messages, or am I going to use common messages to reach out to my end users? So when I'm planning, I am planning at the strategic level as well as I am planning at the tactical level to achieve my marketing objective. So whatever, whether at the strategic or at the tactical, what is my strategic planning process? And as you can see on the slide here, the strategic planning process is broken down into three components: planning, implementing, and controlling. So when you plan, what is important here is that your planning has to be in sync, has to be in alignment with the corporate plans. You cannot say that I'm going to offer this product wherein your corporate level planning says that this year we are going to be seen as the benchmark in processes. So then my product introduction does not become a key aspect. I must plan my products in such a way that I deliver those products in a using the best of processes. My time to market becomes more important than what I'm marketing, especially if at the corporate level I'm going to be seen as a process re-engineering organization. So Anything and everything that I do, I need to do it from the point of view of the corporate or the bigger picture. Within the bigger picture is what my division is going to do, how my division is going to fit in that or achieve the organization, help achieve its objectives. Within the division, how my business is going to come, and then within the business, what products am I going to offer. So it's all aligned ultimately in the planning phase itself. By doing so, it becomes very easy to implement it. So when I am implementing it, I must implement what I have organized, that is, I have thought through, and then obviously I go out and implement my plans once I get blessings from the senior management to implement it. Now, implementing is only half the job done. The other aspect to it is, how am I controlling it? What am I doing to put KPIs in place? How am I measuring results? Am I doing a pre-post? Am I just keeping a... Suppose I say my objective is to increase customer base. One of my controlling aspects should be I must increase, I must measure the number of customers that I have acquired that I had acquired on 31st December 2019 to number of customers that I have on 31st December 2020, and that's going to give me a yardstick of whether they have increased or they've been the same. Now, mind you, when I use customers, I just cannot keep my number of customers as active and inactive both. These customers are only of relevance if they are active. So I can have 100,000 customers, but if my active customer base is only 10%, then it's a big problem. When I have any problems, then I need to diagnose. I need to take a deep dive analysis onto these problems so that I can take corrective actions. And why do I take corrective actions? Not to repair the problem, but the objective of a corrective action is to arrest the problem, arrest the root cause of the problem so that the problem does not occur or reoccur, number one. Number two, that it helps me, it facilitates to achieve my objectives that I have planned for through this activity that I have done, which is called as the marketing planning process or the strategic planning process. So you must not just plan, you must not just focus on implementation, but you must look at the control aspect of it. So all the three aspects need to work in tandem for your marketing plans to be effective and successful. So as we spoke about it, when you talk about your big aspects, the corporate aspects, what is important for the corporate aspects is you have something called as the vision of the organization, you have something called as the mission of the organization. Now, what do you mean by vision and mission? A vision is more these days, more of an ambition, more of an aspiration that you want to achieve. So if you look at most vision statements nowadays, they say more or less the same thing, which is to be the number one in this business. That's excellent. But what is your mission, therefore? The mission will support my vision. I will be number one in terms of products, in terms of customers, in terms of processes, in terms of policies. How am I going to be my number one? So, what is therefore important to me is I'm going to be understanding or linking or aligning my mission to my vision, right? And therefore, there are some rules that you must be mindful of when you are using a mission statement or when you're developing a good mission statement. And what are these things like? These are like as your goals cannot be unlimited. You cannot say I'm going to do this and this. You must have a priority on the goals that you can achieve. Typically 3, 5, maximum 6, not 10, 12, 15 goals. Because in that process, what happens is you will not achieve everything. So the ideal number is about 3 to 5 goals that I have as part of my mission statement. You must stress on major policies and values. How am I going to bring about breakthroughs? What am I going to change to be able to achieve these goals? Am I going to be changing and creating a revolution in the industry, or am I going to be changing because everybody in the industry is going to change? And therefore, I need to take a long-term view, not a short-term, not a myopic view in whatever decisions that I'm going to be taking. And obviously, if I've thought through all of this very well, it becomes a very meaningful, it becomes a memorable, and obviously with all these put together, it becomes a impactful session to my audience, that I have achieved a good vision, and I have achieved a good vision putting in place a good mission as well. So major competitive spheres, obviously we compete with any and everybody nowadays, and we compete with the brand, with a competitive brand within the same industry. So we compete on industries. The apparel industry, for example, has the Zaras and the Mangoes of the world there. You compete on products, so you're competing on milk as a product. You're competing on competence or skill. So you have skills to write or deliver something better than you have skills otherwise. Customer service skills. You're competing in terms of market segments. I'm only targeting men. I'm targeting men of this age group. I'm targeting all men. That's what we mean by market segments. You're competing on vertical channels, saying I can offer you, or I can do a turnaround with you at this rate, which probably others can't. And lastly, you're competing on geographical territories, saying I am going to be competing across zones, across markets, across regions, or am I just going to be competing in this region? So in a UAE based company, I can say I'm only going to be competing in Dubai, not in Abu Dhabi or Northern Emirates, or I could be saying I'm competing across all geographical avenues or all geographical places within the UAE. But all of this has to be thought through or planned in advance before you can do things otherwise. If you can do this exercise, firstly you can see what is my mission statement of your organization, and in your functions, how is my function aligned to the mission statement that I have. You have mission statements of Motorola, and if you can see, it talks about 2 or 3 key things, which is providing superior quality goods and services. That's one aspect that it's going to do. Second aspect, what it's going to do is it's going to earn adequate profit. It's not going to maximize. It talks about adequacy, and this adequacy is enough for it to grow. So that's how it's defining itself. So at most times it should be liquid. And by doing so, it should provide the opportunity to employees and shareholders to achieve their personal objectives. So I think 3 broad elements is what Motorola is focusing on when we look at its mission statement. eBay, for example, if you look at it, what is it focusing on? If you read it, it's focusing on so first they are saying, tell us what you want and we'll give it to you. So it is everything and anything. That's the first aspect. Second aspect is it's going to create an experience for everybody, for all its stakeholders. So we will give you whatever you want and we'll create an experience for whatever you have dealt with us in whatever capacity of manner, may it be collectors, bargainers, borrowers, sellers, browsers, whoever you are. We are going to be creating a trading experience in an online platform, and that's what eBay is trying to say in its statement here. So if you look at these organizations like Columbia Pictures, you could be market oriented versus you could be product oriented. If you are product oriented, you only talk about the product. If you're market, you talk about a wider audience and you talk about a wider industry. That's what you are focusing on. So you can say things like Columbia Pictures, for example, says we make movies. Movies is its key business, versus the market where it's more broader, saying we entertain people, and therefore that's what we are chartered, we are going to be doing in a market-oriented organization. Xerox, for example, says we make copying equipment, which is just straightforward. The other one of saying is we improve office productivity, wherein we are more market. So organizations are moving. I mean, I'm not saying moving away. You could have a product-oriented strategy, or you could have a market-oriented strategy. So what are the dimensions that define my business? Of course, the key one is the customer needs. I must move around my customer needs. I must understand, I must capture, and with these customer needs, I must segment the market to be able to know whom am I going to be able to target, whom am I going to be able to meet my needs and requirements. And if I do that, then it becomes very easy for me to offer segmented needs and requirements towards my target group. Customer needs with customer segmentation is half the job done. The other half basically are your strong enablers, and one key strong enabler, as we keep talking about, is technology support to be able to meet the needs and requirements of the different demographies or the different segments that you've identified. So these three are the backbone or the pillars that help define a business as far as its marketing plans or marketing strategy goes. What are SBUs or strategic business units? Now, most organizations have departments or called as business units or called as strategic business units. Now, strategic business units, the moment I say it's a strategic business unit, immediately tells me that it is a profit center. It has to be having a profit target. It cannot have a cost target only. And if it is a profit center, then I know that I have to understand whether it is going to be serving the needs of the organization or is it going to serve the needs of the competitors of the organization. So for example, I have my HR department, and within the HR department I have a training center. This training center, should it be profit center or should it be a cost center? What do I mean by that? I mean, this training center should address the needs and requirements of the training needs and requirements of the organization, or it should be of the group. So for example, DP World, I don't know if you've heard of this. DP World is a very big, strong organization in the UAE. It's responsible for the port management of Dubai, of the UAE, and other countries as well. Now, DP World has a training center. The training center is training not just for its group companies, but also training staff from competition companies. So that becomes a profit center. That's what we mean by a strategic business unit within an organization. Strategic planning gap. The strategic planning gap always exists when there is a gap between where you are, your current portfolio, versus where you are desiring or wanting to reach. And there's a gap between the two at all times. What you need to understand is how do you build in your growth, how do you integrate this growth, and obviously how do you diversify this growth. Ansoff, if you look at his Ansoff's product market expansion strategy, it talks about what is your product strategy ultimately. Is it market penetration? Are you entering the market? Like Uber has entered or penetrated this market, and also you have a local brand come up which is Kareem. They have penetrated this market. What has happened with Uber? Uber has also developed its market. If we can deliver cars, we can also deliver food, and you have Uber Eats. Market development. You have product development also. Computers have come with enhanced memory, space, sleekness, and whatever it can do with it, and therefore the product has been developed. Diversification, the EMAR example that we spoke about, believes in a diversified strategy of not just focusing on one market but across many markets. Diversification can also mean, like Pepsi Cola or Coca Cola, is also seen that it is diversified away from carbonated drinks to water to juice to chips to various aspects, focusing on the various needs and requirements of its consumers to be able to compete in these categories as well. So it's very important, according to Ansoff, what is your product market expansion grid, and you must identify whether it can't be all of these at a given stage, at a given time that you're planning. Is it penetrating the market, is it developing the market, or is it developing the product, or are you diversifying into other areas to grow your business? Starbucks as a brand, what has happened with Starbucks particularly? What are some of its reasons for growth? Typically, it is a company which is focused on the go. So you come, no need to sit, wait, you have coffee on the go. You have various other beverages that it is introduced on its menu. You have various bites or food items that is introduced on its menu. And now you also have a sit-in, dine-in culture wherein it has capitalized, especially in the UAE, it has capitalized on the coffee culture where people go in, sit, eat, dine, have coffee, and then walk out. And therefore, that is how Starbucks, over the years, with its stringent quality control standards, has grown the coffee business to what it was years ago to what it is today. What is corporate culture? Corporate culture is shared culture of everybody who's working in the organization. So we say that the culture in this organization is informal. What are we trying to say is there is no formality, there is no bureaucracy, there is no nothing in this organization which is hierarchical. You've heard words like saying uh, our culture, we practice an open door policy. Now that's a culture of the organization. What does the word open door policy mean? It means any employee at whatever level he or she is in the organization can meet their managers and their superiors all the way up to the chief executive officer by just knocking at the door, seeing if he or she is available and meeting them. That's your open door policy. You have an open office policy also, which means there are no cubicles in the organizations. The entire organization has just a table and a chair. So it's an open office. You can see, work, meet anybody. And I guess some people say with an open office you is more productive than a closed office. So again, things that are differently measured, but these are corporate cultures within your organization. You could find out what the corporate culture is within the organizations that you are working. Tactics for managing change. Now, change management is something that has been established within the organization, and in the change management program, you must have a dedicated department to manage change. It cannot be the same persons doing the same things. Any time that you want to manage change, let it not be top down but let it be lateral. So let there be a buddy culture in the organization to encourage it, to invoke it, or to invoke or to propagate change within the organization. Many a times we don't want to change. Why don't we want to change? Because we believe that the change is going to impact our jobs, and therefore we don't want to get out of our comfort zones, and hence we don't want to try something new. When we are managing change, we must set the metrics in advance in terms of what we wanted to do. Have we been able to achieve or do that? If we cannot measure it, there is no meaning of change. We are a company wherein we believe in new methods of changing. Fantastic statement. But how are we going to measure that change also has to be identified when we make this statement. And if we are unable to measure it, then we might as well not keep it. Okay. And then we must have enough data to always mention to our senior management that this is what we have done, this is what is quantitative, and this is what we have been able to achieve. So the strategic planning process again says the same thing. When we plan, we must take into account the environment, which is the external environment, and the SWOT to be able to formulate our goals, which helps formulate our strategy, which help implement our strategy, and then we must have a control mechanism to know that whatever we had planned is whatever we could have achieved. And if there's a gap, obviously we need to meet across to be able to see how do we bridge this gap, which is the action planning exercise. SWOT, what does the acronym mean? The acronym stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, SWOT can be for your organization, SWOT can be for your function, SWOT can be for the market in which you operate, SWOT can be for the brand that you are offering. It can be at whatever level, provided you know upfront that you were preparing this SWOT for what. Your SWOT basically just want to bring in some aspects of SWOT here, and that is strengths and weaknesses are internal, opportunities and threats are external. So strengths and weaknesses are internal to the organization. You cannot say I have no weaknesses. You must identify the weaknesses so you can overcome these weaknesses and no, and avoid the threats and leverage the opportunities. So opportunities and threats are external. How many of you today, when you're preparing a SWOT or will prepare a SWOT, use the word, we always used to use the word competition. How many of you are going to use the word geopolitical? I think all of us are going to be using this as our threat nowadays, because the environment in which we are operating is no longer a competitive threat but a geopolitical threat as well, which we must acknowledge and we must overcome when we are putting our SWOT analysis together. Expo 2020 in your SWOT is going to be a big opportunity for you this year for your businesses to grow. So, as we talked about, strengths and weaknesses are internal and opportunities and threats are external. And this opportunity can be with regards to the target market, which can be with regards to the trade channels, can be with regards to the benefits that we are going to be offering. So it can be anything and everything about the environment in which you are going to create or leverage or exploit those opportunities. For example, if there were no Sunday deliveries, FedEx has to offer the Sunday deliveries based on consumer needs and requirements and met that need and requirement to be able to increase or keep its customers satisfied. Banking has become more obvious. You don't need to bank on a constant 8 to 4 or 8 to 3 branch hours. So you have mall banking, wherein people go into the shopping malls and bank and do their banking needs or banking transactions in the malls. If you cannot go to the mall also, you have the non-branch channels like the internet bankings or the mobile bankings of the worlds that help you do banking at your convenience. Yeah. Opportunity matrix, as we spoke about, we need to capitalize on the opportunities that exist in the marketplace, whereas the threat matrix needs to be seen from all angles, need not be only competition, can be with the political setup, can be with pricing, can be with higher costs, can be with, if there is a legal framework coming in, no matter like it or not, you have to adopt to it. If you're a security camera manufacturing company, and if there is a legal obligation or a legal requirement come in, say from Dubai police, you have to implement it like it or not. When you are planning your strategy, you need to formulate your goals and MBOs. Now, what does goals and MBOs means? Goals and MBOs means things like formation of your objectives, and these objectives have got to be in line with the strategic or the marketing goals that you put in place. The principle that you will adopt to do this is called as the SMART principle, which is specific, measurable, actionable, and time bound. You just cannot have subjective goals. So when you set goals, when you set objectives, you must keep the SMART principle in mind. Porter's generic strategies, it says that you can strategize or you can bring about a strategic difference either through cost leadership, or you have a cost advantage, or you differentiate on your offerings, or you have a focus advantage. Nobody delivers the way we do because we also do Sunday deliveries, for example, is what FedEx says, and that is a focus that it has on its business. So when you are creating alliances, you create alliances on, when you create alliances, you create based on either joint products or promotions or logistics or pricing, which means you partner with suppliers to be able to offer that product or a service. For example, a credit card company might be partnering with a travel company to give you that miles redemption that it tries to redeem. Promotional, you have a below the line and an above the line to be able to tie up or partner with your promotion or with your organization so that you can reach out to the end user. Logistics, obviously, you're going to use retailers and manufacturers and representatives to reach out to your consumers. And for pricing, the opaque set of countries have a pricing collaboration so that any pricing decisions with oil are going to be taken or driven by the opaque bound countries, especially for your respective, especially if you're looking at the Middle East for oil pricing and for oil production also for that matter. Anything and everything you do, you have to take into account the relationship with your suppliers, your partners. Unless they are on your side, you are not able to add value or offer value to your end users or customers. So that was by and large what we covered on marketing plans and strategies. And in marketing plans and strategies, we have looked about planning first and then strategizing. Planning first from the point of view of creating the plans which are in line with not just your function, but which are in line with what the organization is going to offer. So keep the corporate vision in mind to be able to provide your plans. Your strategies can be tactical, which is both at the corporate level as well as at the product, place, price, promotion level. And that is what needs to be able to put together to be able to achieve your objectives, keeping in mind that these objectives will help achieve the organization objectives. Yeah. So that was by and large on marketing plans and marketing strategies. Hope you found it interesting and hope you'll find it very, very useful when you implement this in your organizations. Thank you.